This bolt, I mean, what a piece of design, Shimano. As design goes, Shimano, this is right up there with, I don't know, gluing cranksets together. Hello again, YouTube, and welcome to winter 2023. And as you can see, the Trek Domane is back on the channel. Now, you might have seen a post that I put on a couple of weeks ago with a picture of a new group set. Ever since I did the restoration on this bike, it's had a bit of a Frankenstein group set on here. We've got, I think these are 105 5800 shifters on here. The brake calipers are R7000 brake calipers. They were bought new when I did the restoration on this bike a few years ago. Going backwards, the chain set has recently been replaced. It was a standard 105 chain set with rotor Q rings on there. That started making a creaking noise. It's a Holotech 105 chain set, and it's making exactly the same noise that the Ultegra and Dura Ace Holotechs are making. So I don't know, maybe that problem goes a little bit deeper than Shimano are talking about. Anyway, after a lot of faffing about, I replaced the 105 chain set with a Tiagra chain set, and finally the last bit of the bike that's original, there's an Ultegra mech at the back. So it is a bit of a Frankenstein group set. It works okay, and to be honest with you, the shifting's probably the best it's been for some time, and that's just down to a lot of faffing. But I recently got lured in by a deal I saw on Merlin Cycles for a fall 105 R7000 group set. Now, I had been thinking about swapping this to R7000 purely because I just love that group set. I've got it on the Pro Carbon. It's one of the best group sets I've ever used. When this bike was new, this came with Ultegra, and the 105 R7000 is every bit as good as that. So, you know, it's an upgrade I've had in the offing for a while, and I looked at buying the parts second hand on eBay. No lie, I couldn't buy, well, if I bought the parts second hand on eBay, it would have cost me 50 quid less or thereabouts by the time I'd added in cable outers, new sets of cables, chain and stuff like that. By the time I've added those things in, I'd have been 50 quid down on what it cost me from Merlin for the brand new group set. No brainer. So today, the old group set's coming off and the new 105's going on. So what I thought was, I thought I'd video this just from the point of view, if you've got a 10 speed bike and you want to take it to 11 speed, just what's involved. So throughout this video, I'm going to pop up like this and talk through various sections of it, and there's a couple of reasons for that. On one, I just simply forgot to record the audio, so this seemed like a good solution. But also, I wanted to put this video together as a beginning to end group set removal and replacement type video. So some of the sections might seem out of sequence. For example, I'll fit a mech and do basic adjustments on it before I do any of the cabling adjustments. Well, if you were replacing just a mech, you would do those together, but that's not this. This is about replacing the entire group set. And with replacing an entire group set, you're going to need to remove everything from the bike, like I've said, and you are then going to need to refit in a certain order. It's a little bit like if you were doing something like an electrical installation, you'd first fix and second fix. That's kind of how I see it, you know, that when you do a group set replacement like this, you leave yourself with a completely empty blank canvas to put the new group set in. You do your first fix, which is mechs and shifters on and basic adjustments done, and then you do your second fix, which is putting your cables in and making your final adjustments to the cables. So if you're going to fit a completely new group set, you might as well start with a blank canvas. Take the old group set completely off the bike, and that's where I started. So the mechs came off, dead easy, Allen keys and cable cutters, that's all you need for that job. And one of the things that I actually found when I was taking my rear mech off was that this rear mech hanger had become really, really loose. It was like a loose tooth is the only way I can put it when I took the mech off. What had happened is over the years the bolts had slackened off a little bit, which I hadn't noticed. Dirt had got behind and you just had years and years of accumulated crud behind that. It was never going to fit properly. I actually found a problem with the mech hanger itself at this point. Basically, where the mech had been loose for all that time, it had actually nipped away at the corner of the hanger. And that's the corner that the mech actually locates onto to keep it solid. So as it was, I ended up replacing the whole mech hanger anyway. To remove the levers, of course, you've got to remove the bar tape, and I had a double wrap on here. I had this white RSP tape over a base tape of Deader Elementi stuff. Now, the Deader tape had really stuck to those bars, and I really wanted to get all of that off of there. And you've got a couple of options. You could either go at it with like a blade or something like that and scrape it all off. I've done that before, but you just really ruin your bars if you're doing that, or you run that risk. Or you can just clean that stuff off of there, and that's the option I went for. So I began by dousing everything in a really heavy duty degreaser. I use Screwfix's own degreaser, which is about 12 quid for 5 litres, and it's as good as any other degreaser I've found. So I soaked it in that to begin with. Then it was a good douse with WD-40. Let all of that soak into the bar before you then go at it with a really rough sponge soaked in the degreaser solution. Finished off with a cloth soaked in acetone. You could use isopropyl alcohol for this, but I had acetone, and that's the stuff I think they put into, is it nail varnish remover or something like that? It's also the stuff that if you fitted a battery to a MacBook with an iFixit kit, this is what they give you basically to remove the adhesive from the old battery. So it took me about 45 minutes to get the bars completely clean. You can just see this section here that I've cleaned up. Came out really nice. And for me, the benefit of that comes when you put the new levers and the new bar tape on. So for me, that was time well spent. Right, so the old group set is off. The only bit remaining is the old calipers, the old brake calipers. They were R7000 calipers anyway, and they're practically new. I mean, there's hardly any wear on the pads. I'm just going to keep the ones that came with the new group set as spares. I would say that if you're putting a new group set on, going to the lengths that I've gone to today of completely stripping the old one off and making the bike completely ready before you put the new one on is a must. There were a couple of things I caught, like the mech hanger at the back there, where the hanger had come loose, got some dirt under it and started working itself even more loose. Well, you stick a new mech on that and it's not going to index properly or anything. So you're not doing yourself any favours from the start. And even things like going to the lengths of getting all of the old adhesive off the old bar tape. You've just made your life that much easier when you put your new shifters on and when you recable and when you put your new bar tape on. So time well spent in my opinion. It's taken me most of the day to get the old group set off and get this frame ready for the new group set. And I will be fitting the new group set tomorrow. As you can see, we're losing light. So that's definitely a tomorrow thing. So I began the rebuild basically by putting on the crank and the rear cassette. And the reason for that was I wanted to size the chain as one of the first things that I did. So the chain sizing method I used is loop the chain around the big ring at the back, loop the chain around the big ring at the front. No mechs involved at this point, you just want it around those rings. You find where the chain would naturally want to join, and then you add, I think, 2 to 3 links to that, and that will give you a pretty good approximation for how long your chain should be. I'm going to use a power link or split link on this chain, so I've got to figure out where that chain would join against 2 end plates, the inner plates on the chain, because obviously I'm going to have my power link that will slip into those inner plates to make the connection for me, as opposed to the standard Shimano chain which comes with a rivet. So this will be the first time I've used my new Park Tool chain breaker in anger. Right. Okay, let's line that up. Are we all lined up? Yep. Oh, how nice is that? Do you know what? 34 quid for a chain breaker, but worth every penny. So this front mech is a little bit different to fit to other mechs that I fitted. I've got a braze on, so it's going to bolt onto the bracket at the front in the normal way. But then there will also be a little support plate that you will need to glue to the frame in some applications. And that support plate is there to provide support to a bolt that actually comes through the body of the derailleur. And I guess that just helps the whole thing keep itself rock steady when you're shifting. So in this next section, I'll talk you through fitting that plate to the frame. I was multitasking badly when I was doing this, so you'll hear it interchangeably called support plate, little metal shim, little metal thing. But it is just that little plate that comes in the kit with a sticky pad on the back. You're going to need to stick that to your frame potentially. So having said that this all comes in brown boxes and not fancy blue Shimano boxes, the front mech does indeed come in a lovely blue Shimano box. So braze on front mech goes onto its little bracket there. Now I'm not going to really tighten anything up until I know how this fits and whether I need to fit that little shim. Okay, so the main adjustment that you want is that the derailleur is straight and parallel to the chain rings, and do you know what? That ain't bad. Just about there. Right, so let's just nip it there for the time being. Shimano front mechs actually come pre-fitted with this sticker that shows you where the chainring teeth should be in relation to the mech. So basically what you're doing is you're just putting the the teeth into that silhouette on the sticker and making sure that they line up. So with this particular front mech, it does come in the bag with this what looks like little metal shim. Now the purpose of that shim is, dependent on how this fits on your frame, you may need to stick that shim to the frame. There's a bolt that goes through the mech that keeps it stable, and you want that to have something to bear against. So what you don't want is that you're trying to force that bolt against a carbon frame. I think I've probably got enough leeway in the bracket that's already on there. So that's the support bolt. Now what you need to do is you need to look at your braze-on to see if your braze-on bracket comes down far enough that that bolt can bear against the bracket. Because if that bolt can bear against the bracket, you don't need this little shim or spacer. or whatever you call it. However, if it doesn't, and in my case it doesn't, I'm going to need to fit this. Now, to find out, you're going to need a 2mm Allen key, and the 2mm Allen key comes in through the derailleur into the support bolt, which you can just about see, and then basically wind that bolt out to see where it gets to. So I've wound it out and I've got a pretty good view of where it's going to contact my frame. So I'm not going to go too far with it because the spacer will obviously take up space. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get a swab and go over that area of the frame with some isopropyl alcohol to make sure it's absolutely spotless, and then we'll fit this little spacer right in here. Wind that screw out. Better. There you go. Right, much better. So with the front derailleur basically installed, your height set, I'm using the sticker there to set the height. Nip this bolt up, and then the first adjustment you want to make is you want the front of the cage here to be parallel with your outer chainring. So I'm just using a straight edge to check that. Now that adjustment is made using the low screw. In here you've got two adjustment screws. They are 2mm hex, and low is the one closest to the back of the bike. So let's give that a wee. Yep, okay. Don't worry about the back. The back will probably be a mil or so in at the moment. You're going to adjust that using the support screw that little plate is on the frame to support. And with the bolt finally locked off, front of the cage set, you're going to use that support bolt which we talked about earlier, 2mm hex. Oops. You're going to use that just to bring the back of that cage slightly out. So that's all set. Parallel at the front, parallel at the back. The low adjustment screw dictates your setting at the front. The support bolt dictates your setting at the back. So there's our rear derailleur. Like I say, no fancy boxes, hardly any instructions with it. In fact, the only instructions you get are a sheet telling you to scan a QR code to get the instructions. So one of the things I've found is that Shimano don't seem to provide instructions anymore. Don't worry, you can go onto their website, download and print all of the instructions that you need, and they're really worth having, if for nothing else, for the torque wrench settings. Even better, just keep a laptop or an iPad to hand, and then you can scroll backwards and forwards between the pages that you need. So let's get it unwrapped so as to not deprive you of the unboxing, which is pretty unspectacular. There we go. Right, so I've gone for the medium cage version. That will allow you to take up to a 34 cassette on the back. So that's where I say, you know, you could literally get a 1-to-1 with the 34 on the front. But there was a time recently actually when I needed gearing like that, but fortunately those times are behind me. I'm going to put a little bit of grease on the bolt and we'll get it installed. Fitting the rear mech is quite straightforward. Single mounting bolt at the top there. Torque on that I believe is 6 to 9 Newton meters. I gave mine just a quick squirt of grease before I put it in. Make sure before you fully tighten that home that the stop pin on the bracket just below the mounting bolt there is butted up against the stop on your mech hanger on your bike. That just stops the mech pivoting forward under load. And then the main adjustments that you're going to need to make, what I'd call your first fix adjustments before you do any cabling, are your limit screws. Now the limit screws, if you look at the derailleur directly from the back, the limit screws are the two little 2mm hex marked H and L that sit on the back of the mech there. So your first adjustment is to basically sweep the mech all the way in just under hand pressure. And just under hand pressure like that, with the mech swept all the way in, what you want is that lower jockey wheel lines up nicely with the biggest sprocket on the rear cassette. So that's your lowest gear, basically. If it doesn't line up, use your L limit screw just to tweak that position, just until you've got that jockey wheel nicely lined up with the sprocket. The next adjustment, just release the mech and let it hang naturally in its natural position. And in that position, you want the front jockey wheel to line up with the small sprocket on the cassette, or the highest gear. So again, if that doesn't line up, just tweak its position using the H limit screw on the mech there and a 2mm Allen key. There is one further adjustment on this mech, but you won't make that until you've got the chain on there. And I'm going to be fitting the chain in a later part of this video, so we will cover that then. But it's the B screw. Now the B screw sits off to the side of the limit screws. It's the only other kind of 2mm hex adjuster on the back of the mech there, so you can't miss it. The B screw is basically there to set the height of the jockey wheel in relation to the cassette. And what you're going to do is, when you put the chain on, you're going to adjust that so that you're getting the jockey wheels as close as possible to the cassette without interfering with it. And what that does is that just takes up any slack in the chain and just keeps the chain nicely aligned on the cassette for you. So it's time for the shifters, and this will be all of the components out of the box basically. So basically the box comes with everything that you'll need. So there's two brake cables there, there's cable outers, they look like one of those is a brake, one of those is gear. You've got various ferrules and gear ends in there. Now the curious thing about the shifters is that they come pre-cabled with the shift cables already in them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these out of the bags and just slip them onto the bars and do them up. Fitting the shifters isn't particularly complicated. All you've got to do is slacken the clamp bolt and basically slip the shifter onto the bar and then tighten the clamp bolt. Now, top tip for you, you will find that these rubber hoods that protect the mechanism of the shifter, and basically the rubber hoods that you're going to hold on to when you're riding the bike, they are quite stiff and they do take quite a bit of force to pull back and get out of the way of that clamp bolt. For that reason, I use ball-headed Allen wrenches just to get in there and slacken and basically tighten that clamp bolt. What I found is that once you've got them sort of basically clamped onto the bar, you're then in a better position to pull more of that rubber hood away, in which case you can go in with a long bit in a torque wrench and get your final torque on the clamp bolt. Yeah, this bolt, I mean, what a piece of design, Shimano. As design goes, Shimano, this is right up there with, I don't know, gluing cranksets together. So with both mechs and both levers fitted to the bike, really all you've got left to do is the cabling. Don't underestimate that step though, because I actually find cabling the fiddliest part of the job. You've got to remember that the cabling is make or break, because if you get the cabling wrong, the shifting will be wrong, and if the shifting's wrong, well, what was the point in changing the group set? So I'm going to take my time over this. Now R7000, 105 R7000, if you're upgrading from one of the older group sets like 5800 or something like that, these do cable slightly differently. And I will take you through the steps for the front derailleur and the rear derailleur. I'm going to start with the rear, start from the back and work forward. The brakes, piece of piss. Okay, so in your bag of bits and pieces that come with your group set, you get a couple of cable ends like this one here. These have a little stubby angled end on them, but more importantly, they have a groove or a kind of lip down one side. These go into your levers to secure your cable into the lever. And I've inserted the right hand lever one here. So you've got to make sure when you're cabling this, like I say, these came with the cables in place already. So the cable's going to exit the lever just here. There's a little clear cover over it, just hanging down there. Pull that off and drop it out the way. Then slip this cable end up the cable and into the lever, making sure it aligns with that groove. So basically the ridge on the outside of the body aligns with that groove that's in the cable retaining part of the lever. You can then slip your outers into place. So basically I've got to cut a piece of outer that's going to run from here down to the front barrel adjuster on the frame. This is an externally cabled bike, so there's no worrying about getting them through the frame or anything like that. So yeah, let me just go and get some cable outer and I can do that. Right. So this cable's going down the drive side of the bike to my rear mech. Right, okie dokie, so we've got our end in the lever already. Let's push that in. Let's just make sure that yeah, I can feel the cable moving nicely there. So this cable is going to come around the inside of the bar. Then it's going to loop down and into the barrel adjuster. Do you know what? Usually these come a little bit long, but I reckon this is going to be there or thereabouts for this particular application, possibly even a little bit short. We'll see. Right, so if you imagine that's going to be on there. Yeah, that's plenty of room. Okay, so the next job, given that you've got everything tickety-boo at this end, is to put this cover back on. So there we go. That is essentially cabled at the front there. So I'm just gonna pin the outer like that. Let's go get some electrical tape and run that nicely inside the bar. So when you're running cables on an externally cabled bike, I don't know if you can see them. I'll hold them up. I'll tell you what, let's put one on the end of my pick. There you go. Okay, you get these little donuts that go onto the frame that go onto the cable to keep it away from the frame. And like I say, they don't give them to you in this new group set, presumably because they assume you're going to be running this internally where you've got a different set of issues. So when you get the cable to the back of the bike here, Shimano recommend that you use one of the cable ends that's got the tongue on it, which I've done here. So I've just got the plain alloy one going into the frame there. Underneath where your pinch bolt is for the cable, you've got a plate that's shaped like a D, and the flat part of the D wants to be facing the back of the bike where the cable goes in. So let me just see if I can get this cable through here and secured. Okay, so make sure on your shifter that you've gone all the way out on your shifter so that you're effectively in the highest gear. And then pull your cable tight, get all the slack out of it. Make sure that that is still aligned, that little plate at the back there. Nip your cable. Okay, that's good. And the torque setting on these is 6 to 8 Newton meters. So let's go for 7. We will then crimp on a cable end. Now those Park Tools crimpers, those Park Tool cutters do come with a crimper. I just never find it works very well, so I'll just use a pair of side cutters on it. Cabling the front mech is easy enough. To be honest, I thought it was a little bit unorthodox, but it's simple enough. First thing you've got to do is slip a little cap off of the clamp bolt. Loosen your clamp bolt and bring your cable in. Now, in one of the guides I saw on YouTube, the guy fitted one of the, what do you call them, cable ends with a tongue on it. I think what the purpose of that was, he was trying to protect the body of the mech from the cable. You don't need to do that. Shimano in their own instructions don't tell you to do that. They just tell you to bring the cable straight into the mech, put it through that bolt. The weird part that I found with the way that the cable runs is it runs under the clamp bolt. It needs to come out towards the front of the bike. If you look at the mech, there's a little channel that it fits down into, and then you loop it around the front of the mech and through a little eyelet on the cap that you took off of the clamp bolt before you fully torque it all down. So what I would do is basically get your cable located and clamped into the clamp bolt, and then when you've got the cable clamped in, make your cable adjustments. And don't torque anything down until you're sure that you've got the mech well set up. One slightly unorthodox thing about this mech in comparison to other front mechs I've fitted, and one really nice thing actually, is when you cable it, the mech itself will tell you if you've got the right cable tension. Basically, you just need to pull the cable through the clamp bolt and take out all the slack. It needs to be really tight. You're going to do this basic adjustment with the mech in the first trim position. So basically what that means is that you sweep the mech all the way out as if you're going into the big chainring at the front, and then you take the inner lever and you half click it just till you get that first little snick that takes it to the trim position. Now what the trim position does is basically it moves the derailleur slightly in, not all the way in as if it's going to shift into the small chainring, just slightly in. And the purpose of that is to stop you cross chaining, I guess, to a certain extent. So that first trim position is where you will do your cable adjustment. So with the cable pulled tight and the mech in that first trim position, you use the barrel adjuster screw on the mech body to line up the line that's cast into the mech body with the line that's on the kind of rotating part of the clamp, as you can see here. Once those lines are lined up, like I say, as long as you're in the right position with your levers, which is that first trim position, your cable is at the right tension. So basically then, all other things are equal and you can make pretty sound adjustments to the mech. That's a really nice feature in comparison to other front mechs I've fitted, where you're never really sure if it's the cable tension or the limit screws or what have you. So good work, Shimano. Now, brake cables are probably one of your more easy cabling jobs. With these Shimano shifters, you can just slip the cable in from the front of the shifter there. And you know, these outers probably need cutting to length a little bit, but they're not too bad. So yeah, okay, so let's do this. Again, with these outers, you'll probably find that one has a cleaner end than the other. That's definitely the case here. The cleaner end I'm going to use to go to the shifter. So according to the dealer's service manual, these fit without end caps into the shifter. And how long do I want it? About there. So let's cut it there. I crushed that a little bit, so there you go, nice clean cut. So if you don't completely cock it up like I did the first time around, you get a lovely clean cut. What you can do is just put a pick in there and just make sure that that is nice and round. And I have to be honest, that looks probably as good as the factory end. And the cable's exactly the same as any other 105 brake cable I've fitted. So basically, with no brake cable fitted, you pull the lever all the way back to the bar. You can then look in the front of the lever and you can see the hole where your brake cable is going to slide in and then come out the back of the lever. Get the cable outer fitted, just slip it over the inner and then run it down to the relevant caliper. So your cable outer is going into the shifter with no end cap. Basically, you feed the cable through from the front. You saw me do that. You feed the inner through from the front, comes out the back there. You can't miss it. It's the big slot at the top. I'm fitting these without end caps and they look about right. In fact, I think I'm just going to nip a little bit off of this cable outer so that I get a nice tidy run. Down at the brake caliper, it's a much simpler state of affairs. Now, what I tend to do, the way that I set my calipers up, is I set the basic adjustment on the caliper like that. So basically, I will squeeze the caliper together till it's just about where I want it in relation to the wheel. And then I will nip the bolt up with the caliper in that position, and I'll nip the cable tight at that location. You can then just make your final adjustments with the adjusters on the caliper. Okay, so this is the chain that I previously sized, and I'm going to be using a SRAM power link with this around the big jockey wheel. So one of these is a guide wheel and one of these is a tension wheel. I forget which ones they are. I think the guide is the top, the tension is the bottom. So I'm using a SRAM power link to join my chain. Don't worry, SRAM, Shimano, it's all quite compatible, and as long as it's 11 speed there shouldn't be any problems. The only thing to bear in mind when you fit that power link is do make sure that you orient it correctly. There is an arrow embossed into the side plate, and you need, if you're joining your chain at the bottom like I am here, you need to make sure that that arrow is pointing towards the back of the bike. Basically, that arrow needs to point in the direction of pull or force. It's a mistake that I've made before where I've just slipped one of these links in, popped it into place and then forgotten about that. So do make sure that you've got that arrow lined up. But like I say, as long as it's 11 speed and you're only mixing SRAM and Shimano, you shouldn't have a problem with this. Okay, so time to set the B screw. Now, the B screw, as I say, right there little 2mm Allen key. If you're looking at the back of the mech, it's just off to the right of those limit screws. And just tweak that with the, basically the adjustment on this is done with the mech swept all the way in. So basically chain on the big ring. And with the chain on the big ring, you want to adjust that so that there's minimal clearance between the jockey wheel and the chain. Now in my example here, my first pass at this was a little bit slack, to be honest with you. It felt fine and it seemed to comply with everything Shimano said that they wanted from that adjustment. But what I was finding was when I got onto sort of like, there's a couple of hill sprints I do on my Sunday ride, and when I gave it some watts going up an incline, I was finding the chain skipping off just until I tweaked that B screw, just to get the chain just a little bit closer to the cassette. So the final job is done. The bar tape is on. It's on this side. I'm going to do that side shortly. I didn't video this because I'm not being funny. How many bar tape videos does YouTube need? The very last thing I'm going to do before I call this job good is I'm going to fit the power meter. So I'm just going to finish off the bar tape on the other side, and then I'm just going to get some video of fitting the power meter, because I want to talk about the crank end cap on these Shimano systems, and a little bit of controversy that cropped up on a short I posted the other day. So last job, fit the power meter, and as you can see I've gone with stages. I like stages. I know that in some circles I believe they don't have the best reputation for accuracy, but I've certainly never had any problems. So I was going to use the old power meter with this, but I don't know. I'd gone this far. I'd invested in a complete new group set, so it just seemed sensible to finish the job properly. So put that in there, that bolt in there, that bolt in there. Right, so at this point you're not tightening them, you just want them in place, because you won't do the final tightening on these until after you've fitted the cap. Okay, so here's the end cap that goes in, and there is the official Shimano tool. Now, I put a short on the other day with the Park Tool BBT 10.2 on there, and I made some comment about torque setting on this cap, and you know, all the barroom experts opined that I was completely wrong in that this doesn't have a torque setting. Well, now I don't know if you can see, but it says at the top there 0.7 to 1.5 Newton meters. Correct me if I'm wrong, but is that not a torque range? Is that not a torque specification? No lower than 0.7 Newton meters, no higher than 1.5 Newton meters. I think it is. And that's probably a problem unless you've got something like this to accurately measure a low torque value with. So basically all I've done is I've set this to max out at 1.5 Newton meters, and as soon as it starts buzzing I know I'm at max tightness. So let's spin this in. Yeah, we're at 1.5. Okay, so now I can tighten that bolt. And that cap is now tightened to 1.5. So while I'm here, I might as well torque up these other bolts. With these ones, spin them in till they touch, and then torque them down nice and evenly. There we go. There you go. Tighten that up. I will of course come back and tighten these to the factory spec, which I believe is 40 Newton meters, but they're good and tight for the time being. Lovely, indexed. Okay, so there you go. My group set replacement, beginning to end in 45 minutes. In reality, it took me, I spread that job over a week. I had a week off work, so, you know, I had the luxury of time to do it right. And it was just as well, because the bike did throw a couple of curveballs at me. As you saw, I had to replace the rear mech hanger. Wasn't expecting that. The more observant amongst you might have noticed that the wheels changed from a set of Vision Team 30s to a pair of Campagnolo halfway through. The reason for that was when I took the cassette off the old Team 30s, I found out that a chain-off incident I had a good few months ago had done some serious damage to about 3 or 4 of the spokes on the rear wheel. It was, at the end of the day, just easier to get a replacement wheel set rather than go out and source spokes for the Team 30s and respoke the wheel or get it respoked. And as it was, I picked up the Campags for a really good price in the Wiggle sale. I will do a review on those Campagnolo Kalima wheels later in a separate video. So, like I say, 45 minutes in this video. In reality, took me about a week beginning to end. If you had all the parts on hand and you had no curveballs, you could easily do this in a day. The outcome. There are jobs that you do where you spend a lot of time and a lot of money, and then you ride the bike and you think to yourself, was it really worth it? This was not one of those jobs. From the first ride with this new group set, the bike has been transformed. Honestly, it's better than at any point in its history I remember. Definitely having that extra ratio on the back seems to help. I'm using a slightly different cassette as well. I think the outgoing 10-speed cassette, if memory serves, was an 11 to 28, and of course I've now got the luxury of an 11 to 32, so I've got slightly more relaxed gears, which is good for a Sunday ride because I've been putting some lovely hilly bits into my Sunday rides, which those extra ratios are definitely helping with. But seriously, it's just the slickness of the shifting, and just, it's lovely, it's quiet, it's smooth, the bike just slips along. And you know, when I think about this group set, you know, okay, so the group set itself cost me, I think it was just over 400 I paid for the group set. I had to buy a new mech hanger, that was 12 quid. I then had to buy those wheels. Arguably I could have just respoked the Team 30s. The wheels were a steal, they were just over 100 quid I think from Wiggle in their sale. So you know, I'm sort of 550 I think for the job, and it just feels like a new bike. And this 105, it's the reason I haven't really gone to electric group sets or electronic group sets. One, they're enormously expensive. You couldn't even buy a second-hand one for, you know, even the full cost of wheels and Christ knows what that I did on this job. I couldn't get close to that on a second-hand one. You might pick up an L2 or something like that, but You've only got to look at some of the videos on YouTube to know some of the problems that exist with those group sets at the moment. Not to say that they won't be great one day, but I've seen a couple of respected YouTubers who review Chinese stuff just saying, you know, they've had issues with them, waterproofing and Christ knows what, and mechs suddenly dying for no apparent reason. We just don't get that with Shimano 105. And for my money, you know, it's the sensible choice. I'm probably a bit of a dinosaur because I still love my rim brakes, and I'm a little bit aggrieved that I can't buy decent rim brake wheels anymore. You know, you only seem to get sort of like lower end rim brake components. Why? That's still a great braking system. Okay, you go through wheels quicker than you will with disc brake wheels. But the aesthetic's better, and for me they just got better power, and I just love them. Anyway, getting back on point, was it worth doing all this work to the bike? Hell yeah. You know, for just over 500 quid, it's like having a brand new bike. It just feels that different. And like I say, it's one of those times when you do a job, you put a lot of time, effort, and in this case, more money than I was expecting into it. But then you walk away from it and you think, God, that was really worth doing. Anyway, if you've made it this far through this video, you have, as always, my respect and admiration. There are other videos coming. I'm going to do a review of those wheels. You probably saw me using a funky little digital torque wrench in this, which I really like. I'll do a review on that as well. And also just an update on my own progression. As I speak to you today, 90 kilos, and this morning after a sound beating around Zwift, I did the pretzel on Zwift this morning. Because it was frosty outside and I just don't ride if it's looking icy. Yeah, after a sound beating indoors this morning, my VO2 max went to 49 on the Garmin, which has put me into the superior bracket. So Garmin is now telling me that I'm in the top 5% for my age and gender. When you consider at the end of April, it was telling me that I was in the bottom 15% for my age and gender. I'll take that. Anyway, once again, if you've made it this far, thanks for watching YouTube, and I'll catch you in the next one.